Amber Wenzel, council member.
Sharon Faulkner, council member.
Michael Hughes, council member.
Mike Warren, council member.
Ray Sims, budget officer and town manager.
I'm right there. Been appointed to this committee, so this is all new to me.
And Charlie Tracy, budget member.
Let's see, Ann Casbaum representing the Town of Lakeview Police. And we have in the back row,
Everybody's getting introduced. Ron Wilkie with Public Works.
thank
Good
you.
job, Ron. Point for you.
And the two ladies. That's it.
Samantha Frischman, Finance.
Amy Hubble, Administrative Assistant, County Recorder.
Okay, thank you. And the next item on the agenda is for the committee to elect a chair and a vice chair for this year's budget.
I would add that typically the chair and vice chair do come from the private group.
Yes,
Yes.
definitely.
It's just a matter of them arm wrestling to decide who's gonna be which.
Electing the person's not here, it's happened in the past.
Who, I'm not sure who's not here.
John Bodge,
Jan, Ample,
Jan Ample.
Ample.
Jen Ample.
And John Harms,
And Mayor.
and the mayor, but
If he's not.
but he can't be the
Yeah.
chair, it has to be someone from the budget committee, appointed budget.
can we nominate though?
I think so.
I'd nominate Charlie Tracy as chairman of the budget committee.
And I would second that.
Okay, Charlie's been nominated and seconded for chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
No,
And then we need vice chair.
And that can be somebody who isn't here.
Right.
Well, would that be the case, I would nominate John, is it John Harms or Jim?
John.
It's John Harms.
John,
As the second command,
Second.
Vice chair.
vice chair, okay.
okay. Is there a second?
I'd second.
Okay. We have a nomination and a second for John Harms to be vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. So then the chair can take over.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the budget message
Okay,
from Mr. Sims.
so I'll pass out a copy of it for everybody to follow along.
Do you need us to share?
No, I've got one.
Put one here in case Mike shows up.
Got one. Okay, typically I just read quickly through it, try to go quickly, so. This is the budget message for today, May 5th, 2015, for the fiscal year coming up of 2015-16. A balanced budget is presented for the 2015-16 fiscal year for the town of Lakeview. There are very few major changes to the document from the past years. A few highlights include payroll expenses except health insurance are increased by 2.5%, meeting the requirements of our Teamster labor contract for this coming year. Safe expenditures will more than double this year. Being a small employer, our rates are radically affected by substantial claims. This year we've had two, both of them in the police department. One instance, the employee returned to work as expected. In the other, Chief Camp, the claim is continuing and has been for over a year now. Point 3, liability, property, and vehicle insurance is up some this year. Each department is up a different amount, but it ranges from about 7 to 10%. Health insurance is rumored to stay at the current rate for when the plan renews January 1st. The town is insured through Blue Cross Blue Shield through the Teamster Employer Trust. Again, I say rumored because it's really hard to get anything out of them until about November as to if there is going to be any change. But there's a new line in the budget this year called We called it PERS deferred. This is now required by the state to be included in our budget. It represents the town of Lakeview's portion of the unfunded liability of the public employer retirement system, most of which resulted from the past recession. It is not expected to be spent, but it must be accounted for. So there's a line in there this year. If you add them all up, they total about $91,000. This appears to be last year for secure funding for 911 under the current funding plan. There have been excess funds that we've been being used over the past few years and will be used or nearly used up, I predict, by the end of June of 2016. I am working with Lake County and through them, the Intergovernmental Council for 911, to develop a solution to this issue before December, or by December of 2015. 7, the $1 flood snow removal fee on the utility bills is discontinued, effective with the bills that just went out in the mail today for May. Our plan was to discontinue this fee when the fund exceeded $50,000, which it has. It will not be collected again until the fund balance drops below $25,000. And then by the resolution that adopted it or established it, it would then kick back in again at that point in time. The street fund remains static. There are no projects currently planned for the next year. There should be a new round of the small city allotment grants from ODOT, which we have been applying for and likely will again. We have budgeted for one, $50,000 in, $50,000 out, but what specifically would be done has not been identified at this time. Those grants come out August, September, with a set of guidelines as to what kinds of projects are eligible, and then we'll figure out what we'd like to do with them and make application at that time. There are no major projects planned this year in the water and sewer. Utility funds. The Berry Well geothermal project is complete, except for the mitigation of the Blythe and Allen Hot Spring. I think this mitigation will be accomplished before the 1st of July, but it may actually drag on into the next budget year. Finally, the litigation Andy Parker, Oregon Desert Farms, filed against the town of Lakeview and the Update Family Trust regarding the greenhouse well should be completed before the end of June. I will be proposing to the town council in the future here an interfund loan from the utility fund to the DOC geothermal fund before the end of June of this year to reduce any deficit there may be there to a zero. As a result, the DOC fund will have a loan payment line in the next 5 years unless it is paid off sooner. Also, the geothermal labor costs in the DOC budget, I see I left that out, have been moved to the Berry Well project. So to end my message, I want to leave you with a few positive thoughts. Red Rock Biofuel continues to move forward with the town's approval. When the time is right, the project will be annexed into the town. As a result, it will provide a substantial community service fee in lieu of property taxes for the next 15-year duration of the enterprise zone benefit that they have applied for. That fee will likely begin to come to the town beginning in the 2017-18 budget year. After the enterprise zone benefits expire, there'll be 15 years of that. Then the facility would be on the town's tax rolls. On the tax rolls, including in the town, because that's why we want to annex it, so that it's part of our tax base in the future. I think there's a good likelihood that the 42nd group greenhouse project we've heard about lately will be developed in probably this coming year. If it does, I think the interfund loan that I referred to for DOC geothermal could be paid off within the year, or at least in the 16-17 budget year, because of their substantial use of geothermal heat. If Red Rock Biofuels and 42nd Group both develop, our community will experience substantial change, including growth and improvement of our tax base over the next few years. There will also be new revenue to budget with. Last, a new community partnership group focused on downtown and community development and improvement is getting organized. It is following the Oregon Main Street model that has been very successful in many Oregon communities and across the nation. Mike Warren's been working with me on that project as well. And, you know, they're, like I said, they're just getting organized, but they're coming along. We'll see. Any questions?
I guess the only question I would have is with Red Rock and biofuels in the 42nd group.
Yes.
We have new revenue perhaps, but are we going to have to provide more services? Or are there going to be a strain on a already kind of overburdened law enforcement, or on Mr. Wilkie and his public works with water and sewer?
They will, in both instances, we need our water and sewer, you know, for their potable water uses. Undoubtedly, if you have more people in town, you know, both of these projects are going to have employment related to them, which we need, you know, jobs, people in our community. So we'll have growth in our community, maybe some new houses built, I hope. That would help our tax base. But yes, when you have more people,
Yeah.
if you have 150 new jobs in town, and that, you know, in my estimation, probably represents 450 or 500 people if you look at a family unit for each one of those possibly. You know, I don't care if you take 450 people from Portland or Lakeview and you run the averages, you've got, you know, a certain percentage of various kinds of criminal element and domestic violence and all of the things that go along with it. You know, they're pretty much just a factor of how many people you have, you know, as a percentage across the community, not that, you know, workers, people who may have attended the 42nd Street, or the 42nd group meeting, you know, their employees are going to be drug tested, they're going to have background checks, you know, the state requirements still being written are going to describe how the security and workforce is going to have to deal with the cannabis they're growing. So
Enforcement will fall on the county.
in that case, you know, that it is in the county, so it's really a sheriff's issue. With the 42nd group, I was talking with Michael there a little bit before the meeting today. Of course, they're going to need geothermal, and we'll have to negotiate with them about how we provide that and the rates and all those things. Ron and I have talked also a little bit about their need for water for irrigation purposes, and we're going to work with them to, you know, develop some alternative source. You know, there may be private alternative sources of water out in that area for for irrigation purposes for their greenhouses. The other thing is the town actually has a well out there that we don't use. It's the old water district well that when in 2006 or 7, when the arsenic standards were lowered for public drinking water systems across the country, our well then no longer met those standards. And even though we plumbed it to be able to mix it with city water, if we wanted to blend it to reduce it below the minimum and go forward with using it, we've chosen not to. But this may be an opportunity to actually put that well to a beneficial use. So, Red Rock, you know, their worst case, they said, their most case, and they've always told me that they can't imagine that they would ever use as much as 50 gallons a minute for their facility. You know, they've only got 25 employees, they got a handful of restrooms and a break room, you know, an office, a small office facility. They may use a little dust at some key points for dust control for these augers and, you know, grinders and stuff become exposed to the air as chips drop or something. But primarily, they're wanting to dry the material out, and it's the moisture within the product itself that fuels and you know, the distillation to the fuels that they're trying to get. So even though it could be that high or maybe that high, everybody flushed the toilets all at the same time, it typically isn't expected to be that much. So, you know, However, I want to say that, you know, in your water bills that just got mailed today, there is a little blurb in there that, you know, encouraging people to conserve water. We're going to have the council begin to discuss, probably at our next council meeting. You know, we don't really have a written plan for curtailment of water service. You know, who would we take off first, and, you know, so we need to develop that in case. At this point, you know, where our water system is holding up okay, our spring flow is down substantially from where it usually is. Our well field is about where it usually is this time of year. So, although I guess I would say that we figure the irrigators in the valley are going to pump more water earlier because Drew's Reservoir is lower. So, you know, I guess we don't know what that
It's non-existent.
is, what impact that will have as we get to September, and if it continues on dry till October, and you know, we don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic at this point.
Okay.
Okay?
Could you
I didn't mean
explain
to make that long.
the locations of the two, like the greenhouse and the red rock?
The greenhouse project is going to be located at the corner of the Logging Road and Rabbit Hill Road in this area around where the hot pond is before it crosses the
Kind of where Iberdrola was.
further north than that.
Further north than that, oh, okay.
Iberdrola was here, and this is at this is the intersection, the five-way intersection,
Okay.
Charlie, where our Fields Flans buildings are just
Right,
next
right,
to the road there.
yeah.
So it's from there back towards town along mostly along the Rabbit
Oh,
Hill
okay,
Road.
okay.
And Red Rock would be just off of the map, south of town. This is Cadmus Road. Lakeview Ready Mix is this area right in this corner. It's right south of them.
South of them,
Yeah.
okay.
From there down to behind Jerry Berry's house.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, okay.
Okay,
So go ahead and start reviewing the budget, income.
I'm gonna, as usual, like I said in my budget message, there's not a whole lot of changes. I want to point out a few things that I've highlighted. If I go too fast or you have any questions, I'll try to note the page number that I'm working on. This year, for the first time in the, I think this is the 9th budget I've helped prepare for the town of Lakeview. I'm predicting that we will have a beginning fund balance that we'll be able to use. Comes from just several years of being cautious, and so I do believe we'll have a beginning fund balance this year. It's probably more than 50,000, but I think it'll be at least that. Property taxes, county land sales are picking up. They have a number of parcels for sale, and they prices are up. You know, the recession's over, people are looking for property. Property taxes for the year should increase by 3% plus any new development in town. You know, remodels has been a lot of what's happened in the last few years, but Chuck Kelly did build a new house this last year. You know, and we've got the remodel of the True Value hardware stores. That's got to have added a significant amount of value down there. So we are, I just checked the numbers a few days ago, and even though it looks like we've got $633,000 total income in prior year taxes and current year taxes, we are about $640,000 as I looked at this about the 10th of April. May is a big month. The third payment that a lot of people use, installment payment, is due May 15th, and so I think that we're going to exceed our total budgeted amount for income for property taxes for this next year. Page 2, top part of that is mostly our franchise fees. You look across where we are, you know, those numbers. Again, this was as of March 31st. Remember that we get most of these payments on a quarterly basis, and when the payments come in April, they don't show on this report. So that it's about, some of those are about halfway about 50% for the year is a good sign. They're running pretty close to where we predicted that they would be. I did knock the Hunter franchise fee down a little bit, although they have installed their system into some other places, so that may be more than 5,000, or 500, excuse me. Liquor tax is, I just heard on the radio or TV a few days ago that liquor sales are at record levels in Oregon this year. So even though we haven't hit $30,000 since the pipeline came through town, I probably not being as gracious as I might be there at $30,000. Oregon revenue sharing is probably going to exceed our $17,000 that we budgeted last year. But I'd still like to keep them, I'd rather stay on a low amount. The $17,000 for air quality next to the bottom line on the page, that's a contractual amount, and so we will get that. Page 3, middle of the page, district court revenues, about the time I think that's going to be higher, it ends up being lower. It has to do somewhat with the judge and DA and how they prosecute cases. But it's trending up now again this year. So I kind of tried to split the difference a little there. Rural Fire, we received a payment from them just a few days ago, which was for their taxes through December 31st, and it was almost $45,000 for their first 6 months of the year. So I raised their number to 48,000, and it'll probably hit 50 or better. Sale of county lands, that number just kind of seems to, again, it's hard to predict. These are lands actually that are within the town of Lakeview. There's been a couple of sales this year that I know of down on North 2nd Street. It's never a big amount, but it can bounce around a little bit. Page 4, there's not much there to talk about, I guess. Miscellaneous income is, I'd have to pull a file and give you some examples, but obviously we get quite a bit of them. I was trying to think. Sam, can you, off the top of your head, what are some of those?
Recently we've got paid for 911 tapes that people have gotten, and just things that $5 here and there that have come from reimbursements of things that we've paid for.
Just stuff that we don't have anywhere else to put.
Impound fees, that sort of thing? No?
Which one's in?
Impound.
Impound fees would go in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Still doing the $60,000 transfer from the water and sewer funds. Page 5, a little increase. There's, I think, the geothermal fees to the school and the hospital were increased by 2.27% this year. The 5-year rolling cost of living increase that we built into our formula with them. So the amount should be $20,489. Oops.
So last year, we budgeted for geothermal admin fees on the previous page, but it doesn't show any income, but is that something
Okay,
that would be?
those transfers have not taken place yet, Charlie. They will do them in the end of May, first part of June, before the end of the budget year.
Okay, but should that be budgeted?
I see that we did not budget one for the geothermal, the DOC geothermal north of town. Actually, the one on the next page is the one for the Berry. It says admin fee school.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that is for the Berry, the south one. The other, the $2,000 was for the DOC north, and I see that we've left that out. So we should put 2,000 there.
expand your revenues.
Yes.
Where does the fuel tax come?
Oh, back on page, excuse me, it goes into the street fund.
Okay, I just didn't see it in revenues and so.
Yeah, you're right, it's not there, it goes into the street fund.
So we'll be adding that $2,000 to line 1039, 220.
Yes. So now we're on page 5. The underline that says Town Hall. Again, the main thing I want to point out, as I said in my message, the salaries have increased 2.5%, or yeah, 2.5%, and the appropriate withholdings and stuff that go along with that. The one I want to point out particularly is if you go down to about halfway through, pay line 1045 235 is the new line, the PERS deferred, which in each department we've budgeted some of the amount of the unfunded liability that we have to account for. So there it is in this budget. In the town hall budget that covers council, mayor, myself, and the staff, most of the staff except for Dawn here at town hall. While we're talking about PERS, everybody here probably heard the news just earlier, was it Monday, that the Supreme Court in Oregon upheld or actually overturned the legislation that did some PERS reform 2 years ago. And so we're all anticipating that unless something else comes along that changes PERS in the next couple of years, that in the 2017-18 budget cycle we'll be budgeting for significant increases in PERS again. They lag 2 years behind basically in the way they do that system. So the good news is I think that we're going to see with this that PERS set aside that I've deferred, that I've talked about there, that's based upon December 31st, 2013 performance of the portfolio, the PERS portfolio. 2014 was an excellent year, and 2015 has not been a bad year.
So far.
That deficit could shrink significantly by the time we get to the next PERS report. Probably just in time to be able to take the PERS deferred line that we've got and apply it to the actual PERS expense that we'll have at that time. That'll have to budget for. Okay, so I guess in Ela, just like, if you got anything in particular you want to ask me about?
I do on the holiday vacation, 1045, 190. I see that, in the last 2 years we've had an expense, but there's nothing budgeted for this coming year.
1045, 190.
The holiday vacation component.
Okay, and that 18, I don't know about 2 years ago, I'm
Well, the
thinking.
70890 is what I was looking at
Okay.
for the previous year. So,
I believe, Charlie, that both of those, since I don't think we've been budgeting in that line item at all, and those numbers are in that particular line item. I believe they belong up in, we do our, Sam, tell me if I'm wrong, don't we do our holiday pay and all of that stuff just through the regular payroll line item for like for the town manager?
Yes.
Any holiday pay for me is just incorporated into that number, and it really shouldn't be in those two line items.
okay, so would
So
be
is it-
overtime, is there sometimes there's
No,
overtime?
no,
Okay.
and we don't have any overtime here, so
Okay,
they're just in the wrong spot.
So they should be moved up one line.
Those would get moved up into, we'd have to go back and see, which we can do, which employee they were attributed to, or what month, or what holiday it may have been attributed to, and then just put them back into the payroll line
Oh,
item for
okay, I
those.
just-
So they should be zero and be incorporated in one of the items, line items above
so
them.
we're good there.
So we're
Okay.
good there.
Okay. Good enough.
Yeah. on page 6, special projects, third line from the bottom. I just want to point out that, first of all, we're going to spend most of that money before the end of the year that's still there, you know, $1,200. In fact, I spent almost $200 today for paint for the bleachers up at the swimming pool. So that number would be more closely to $4,000 as we said here. But I've doubled it for this year, and the reason that for the increase in that is, as I mentioned earlier, this Main Street organization is beginning to get moving, and I just am anticipating that there may be some, either, I don't know if we call it a need or an opportunity to help with funding for things that they may want to do. I don't want it to be all the town. You know, it needs to be fundraising from businesses and the community, but I do believe that just like our fireworks fund and some of the other things we do, that the town needs to be participating in that as a partner. And so for this year at least, until we get a better idea as to what exactly the needs are, I just kind of incorporated it into the special projects. Now, we do have another fund that we can use if there was something major that came along that we wanted to do, that the town wanted to do with them, and that's that project, you know, grant fund that we created a few years ago. But I don't see them getting that big that quick. I guess that they would need money, that much money next year. Top,
Question,
Charlie. Yeah.
Ask him what's the fire protection that's added in the $4,000?
Okay, that is, that's Bullard Canyon. We have timberland in Bullard
Right.
Canyon that we have to, even though we don't pay property taxes, we do have to pay the state fire protection patrol, the Oregon Department of Forestry.
Okay.
And so that's what that line item is.
Okay.
On page 7, there is a new line item there. I didn't mention in the budget message. It's not a large one, but it's called the wellness incentive. When we did our labor contracts last year, we included a new benefit, I guess I would call it. It involves a little incentive paid to employees who do certain things that they agree to do for us. It's not a very strongly worded program. It's not, you know, Michael especially, he and I did the negotiations. He wanted a much stronger one, but at least we got something started. And so employees can, we pay for a gym membership for some, and but they have to use it a certain amount of times per quarter or per 6 months. We do allow self-directed programs. There's a gym set at the fire station that people can use. We have a couple of employees that have exercise routines that they carry out pretty religiously actually at home, and we ask them to bring in documentation that they've at least they've done the work of filling out the paperwork if they haven't done the work. But it's beginning to get the idea across that we're willing to pay for employees to be healthier, and that may cost us less.
For weight loss
Right.
was my
Yeah,
biggest
that's a
thing.
good
Yeah.
Mhm.
And for strength training for those to keep them out of
Back
workers'
injuries,
compensation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
That was
it.
my concern, yeah.
So, and so on this page, the contingency line, the 45,850 would increase by $2,000 because of the increased $2,000 we put in the transfer.
Okay.
Under the attorney, this is Mr. Bogardus and our retainer with him. And the legal services that are there are occasionally, if we have a lot of work, our retainer agreement with John spells out a certain number of hours of work per month. If occasionally we have an extra workload of some kind or other, then the $3,000 is, or sometimes there's copying expenses or mailing costs and things associated with his work. That's where the rest of those are paid. So at the bottom of the page, we start the police department. One of the things I want to point out, and we just haven't done this yet, and I don't know, I haven't asked Sam if she could look at doing it, and that would be, I'd like to just move, I'd like to eliminate the title of the resource officer. We don't have a school resource officer anymore, haven't had for a number of years. But I know in the past, when we've tried to take that designation out of there, it wouldn't let us do it because there's history in the computer system and we couldn't eliminate the title, so we just keep on using it. It really is just part of the patrol, you know, all of those need to be just one item. They're all patrol officers, so, yeah. But since they won't let us do it, we keep it separate, and as you can see, you know, because it's, you know, the last 2 years now, we've spent more in that particular line item than we budgeted for, but we've also underspent in the patrol amount. So it all belongs in one place, we just can't make it do it. So down through the police, the line items are pretty much the same as they have been. You know, a few little adjustments. Fuel, I think I took it down low because we're considerably under this year. Vests, we never spend as much as we had budgeted, and there's usually a grant to help pay for parts of the cost of those.
The vest must be replaced every 5 years, and that's why it will go on a 5-year cycle, more or less, that vests aren't being replaced. For example, this year, 2 will have to be done this month and next month, and 1 at least will have to be done in September. Should another patrol officer come on, we'll need to buy him another vest. And the vest grant covers 50% of the cost. I can see
So
there's,
does that need to be increased, the 500?
the 500 item.
For the vest?
$500. I don't know how much a vest costs anymore.
Vest costs about $910 a piece.
So we know we're gonna need one, so that
Okay,
should
got
be
half
enough.
of-
But,
half of it.
you know, if we bring on another officer and we need another vest, we do have contingency we can transfer to it if we need to.
It appears as if our ammunition budget was eliminated.
Well, then it doesn't look like it was spent the year before.
That's true. Unfortunately, that is cyclic as well.
Right.
They go for training every 2 years, so we use up all the ammunition that we've got more or less every 2 years.
So my understanding was that you guys are buying ammunition before the end of this year,
Yes,
and that there probably then won't be a need for ammunition next year.
potentially, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
On page 9, I added, near the bottom of the page, under police vehicles, I added $500. I know that's not enough to buy a police vehicle. But we needed a placeholder there for, you know, there may be, we don't know, but there may be another vehicle come up through the Forest Service BLM used vehicles that we may be able to buy, and if one does become available, and when we find out how much it is, again, that would be one of those places. Since we've got it started, we've got a line there, the council would decide if they wanted to buy that or not, and then we'd transfer from contingency the amount of money needed to do it.
Is there enough in cellular phones, because it looks like we're over budget
Uh,
already?
I asked Sam the other day to take a look at that and see what had happened. You know, it should be a flat amount of money. It should be $2,100. You know, we pay a stipend to, is it $30 or $35 a month to the police officers, and that's what it is. And so I don't know why, you know, last year and so far this year we're slightly over, and I don't know why that is. It should be 21. I got a hunch that somebody else's cell phone or something else got, you know, some other expenses gotten in there. But it should be just $2,100.
I would blame Scott Otley.
Pardon?
I would blame Scott Otley. Just,
Is there any of the officers that do not use their stipend the personal phone and actually have a cell phone that belongs to the police department?
Not that I know of, I think they all have their own. Yeah. So we're looking to see where that is. It's, you know, it should be $2,100. You know, if we've got some expense in that line that doesn't belong there, then we'll move it to wherever it is it belongs to be. Okay? So page 10, fire department, there are no more expenses in the police department on that page. So, the fire department, again, the PERS deferred is there. That's the new line item. Overtime, I wanted to point out, overtime is high this year. We struggled to keep staff. In fact, at one time we were down to 5, and Scott Utley was working the desk at dispatch, and we were obviously using a lot of overtime. We're now back up to 6 full-time with 1 excellent part-time and another part-time that is just finishing
Certification.
not the certification, but the testing process. So that's what we want to be, is at 8 people, 6 full-time. Scott is the director, and it's actually, in this case, it's Dennis that's the director of the fire chief really, in this case. 911 is where Scott's at. But, so, you know, I know every year we always bust the budget on overtime. Sure as the world, somewhere along through the year, one of our part-time people will leave for a full-time job, and we'll find ourselves struggling again to you have to keep from using all the overtime budget. But I'm still trying. I don't have anything else marked on my budget, in the fire budget, to bring particular to anybody's attention. Page 12, now I'm at, it's air quality. This pays for, and I've increased the advertisement costs quite a little bit. You know, we've stepped up our efforts with the new PM Advanced program. I think weather had more to do with it probably than the work that we're doing, but we'll take credit for this winter being much better as far as the number of red days and all that we had. So we'll keep working at that. DEQ provides us, as we pointed out earlier, with $17,000. What isn't accounted for in the budget right here supplements Amy's pay, or as part of her pay, I should say.
Why do we have 2 lines for air quality coordinator?
Pardon?
There's 2 lines for air quality coordinator.
There sure are. Yeah,
1063, 110, and
it,
1063, 134.
I couldn't figure out what that was either.
We never had 2 people.
No, we've never had 2 people.
But we paid them the same.
Yeah, we paid them nothing, so the cost was okay. We could add a whole bunch more.
It's not gonna bust the budget.
Okay, page 13, I've got three items to add to this one that we overlooked when we did the budget. They're rather small, but they'll take away a little of that $2,000 we gained earlier. Under FICA costs, this is our planning official. We do have FICA costs, and I put $700 in that line. Also under the unemployment SUDA, the $250, I put $100 there. We were only paying about 65 to 70, but anyway, that'll cover it. And then under workers' comp, we do have a little cost, and it is going up, so I put $25 there. So that'll be $825 off of the $2,000 we gained earlier. There's a $500 less expense under subscriptions and publications. Janine Cannon, our planning official, has decided that this $500 a year book, roughly $500 a year zoning manual that she buys is just collecting dust, and we really don't need to buy it every year, so we're not. So that brings us to page 15, through all of the general fund budget. I'm mixing my pages up. So page 16 is, it's called HUD Special Project. Years ago, the town had a grant from Housing and Urban Development that loaned and granted money for weatherization projects and various things. This will disappear, I think, in another 3 years, but some of the loans that were made, occasionally there's a home sold, there's a payment due, and we receive a little bit of money. As you can see, we sometimes get as much as $40 or $60 a year. But because it was a HUD project, it has to be accounted for the life of the grant, and whatever little bit of income we actually get there, it gets absorbed into the general fund in one of those miscellaneous income lines, now that I think about it.
Ray?
Yes.
This money that we're looking toward getting sometime this year for the stove.
Yes.
Yeah, change out.
Yeah. It's not coming to us. That money is actually flowing through SCOED. So although we're working with SCOED, in various ways, it's going to them.
Okay, thank you.
It's $1.5 million altogether, half of it for Climate, half of it for Lake. Okay, page 18 is 911. After working with our auditors and looking at what the beginning fund balance is, Bob's pretty comfortable that $68,000 is a good number. We've been carrying over more than than what I expected that we would, so, but I think this year we're going to see that change. Our payroll's up. As we talked earlier in this budget as well, we have spent almost $6,000 more in overtime than we budgeted for, and then we also have had a significant amount of extra costs in this budget for upgrading computer equipment when some programming was changed on us, and we had to upgrade the equipment because our old Windows XPs or whatever they were no longer good. So by the end of this year, we're going to be, as I said in the budget message, this budget needs the IGC, the people, the users of the 911 fund are going to have to get together this fall to figure out how we shore up the funding for 911. We don't want to lose it. We depend on it because it helps our fire department, and that our fire department also plays a major role in keeping the cost of 911 down as well. So we need to do this together, but we do need to figure it out by December, and the reason December is important is our agreement for providing these services say that that's when the town has to give notice if we don't want to do it in the future. So, and as I said, we want to do this. We have every intention of continuing to operate 911. We just got all of our partners have to figure out how we're going to pay for it. And I think that for next year, we're going to have a new plan. We're going to have some supplemental money. So with that said, the income piece is about the same as it has always been. We get state 911 taxes. Those are expected to be up a little bit by the end of the year because of some changes they've made in the way the cell phones and go phones are being taxed. They're struggling with that. And our annual assessments locally are, we have a schedule for what those are. In the 61,000 that's there now is, we've gotten I went and looked, we've gotten a 911 tax payment into the wrong account. Wrong number, it needs to go up to the one above there. But the annual assessments are just coming in now. And I think, I don't know if we've got every one of them, but we've got most of them. The new item there in income is $6,000 at the bottom where it says miscellaneous income. If you look clear back over on the end of the annual assessments for the furthest to the right, you'll see that it's $6,000 short. And I have found some people that are trying to help me. It'll be next year undoubtedly before we get through the system, but BLM shorted us $6,000 3 years ago, actually it was now, in the third year back. And it had to do in the process of writing new agreements with them, and they work on a federal fiscal year that's a different year than ours. And it's taken until now for them to finally realize that in that, transition, they didn't pay 1 year, but they didn't. So we think we're gonna get it. In the page 19, most of the items are about the same as they've always been. I just pointed out a minute ago that overtime has been high. So there it is, $6,000 almost in the 911 portion of the fire 911 expense. And then, the rest of the items down through there are pretty much the same. Safe has increased because, like I said in my budget message, it's going to be about a little over double what it was this last year. Page 20, the 911 equipment for 741, a little more than halfway down through there. That's where we paid for the extra, all the computer equipment that we had to upgrade. So that's where it shows up at.
May I ask, is that where the police computers went to?
No, police computers, we're transferring from 3 or 4 different budget line items that were underspent in the police department and picked them up without having to overspend. Okay?
Yes, thank you.
So that gets us through 911. Of course, page 21 is just the totals. Street fund, I didn't really harp on it this year in my budget message, but I have about almost every year for the last 4 or 5 years at least, I think, and that is that the street fund is, we don't have adequate funds we're keeping up, we're maintaining as we are, but our streets are getting older. We did a major repair, overlay years ago, and that's coming to the end of its useful life, and there's at some point we're going to have to figure out how we pay for streets, because as they deteriorate, the cost of keeping them up is going to increase, and we're not going to be able to pay for it out of normal things that we've been doing in the past. Council, I guess, is going to have to think about either a serial levy type of thing, especially, an ongoing levy for streets, or some kind of a special fee someplace for streets, or, a bond levy to do major work and pay for it over time again through a tax measure. So, they're holding up pretty well. Ron and the guys do an excellent job of keeping them up. That is, you go around and look, after 15, 16, 17 years, there's been a lot of utility cuts, and they patch them and seal them, and we're doing some more this year. Those are where the streets start to fall apart because the water eventually gets in them and heaves. So we're looking at about $40,000 of beginning fund balance. We're going to get that amount because we are buying a street sweeper this year with CMAQ funds, and there's about a $30,000 match that we have to pay for that, but we're trading in the old sweeper for $60,000. So in the process of buying a new sweeper, we're going to actually increase the value of the street fund by about $30,000. So that'll help get us through another year. Mike, you asked about the state highway funds, gas tax, and it's that, it is the state highway funds, the $130,000. There's some belief that That number might actually be a little higher this year as the price of gas has went down. There's been some more driving. The gas taxes stayed the same. So, you know, that we may beat $130,000 this year. Interestingly enough, though, the price of fuel and oil is going back up, so it'll undoubtedly be a short-lived phenomenon if it in fact comes to pass. The $298,000 is after we buy the sweeper. That'll be the amount of CMAQ funds we have left available. These are special air quality funds, Ray, that we get from the federal government they can only be used for very specific things that will mitigate. We buy a sweeper because we reduce dust, re-entrain dust. We can possibly pave streets, gravel streets with that. That's a possibility. In fact, in our discussions with Red Rock Biofuels, we've offered up you know, $200,000 of these to pave Cadmus Road. It is in your road boundary. They would have to pay the match if there is any, but my last discussions is that's probably going a different direction. So I don't know where we're going to use it, but it's ours until they take it away. I said in my budget message for a small city allotment for this year, this next coming year, $50,000. We don't have a project, but we need to budget for it in case, you know, when it comes up, and then when it does, we will, there's a corresponding $50,000 expenditure line item for that. So page 23, bottom of the page goes into the expenses for the street fund, and those are again increased by the 2.5%. Looking down to see something that jumps out different. There's not very much different in this budget. We pretty much just do the same thing year after year after year. Page 25, I did want to point out that down about halfway through the page, we're still working on the M Street, industrial M Street. It's numbers 733 and 734, which are the small cities allotment project that we're working on now for M Street. Part of that work was done last summer and fall. The rest of the work's June 20th. Ron, is that roughly the date that they're going to do the chip seal and finish up that project, and so those funds will get spent. Right above there it says SCA 215 is line item 731. That would be a new project that we might receive this coming year, and where it would be spent. I'd like to spend it on M Street, or not M Street, on Missouri, but I don't think they're going to let us do it because it's, you know, it's already an improved street, and so I'm not sure they're going to let us, that they'll let us do that. But you know, occasionally they tweak the rules a little. Missouri with Fremont there, and you know, the scaling station on one side of the road and the log yard on the other. It takes a beating. There's no doubt about it.
Are we still getting a lot of truck traffic through there? Remember when we closed all the streets for this thing, people got into use to cutting down there, and well, Ruby Pipeline.
Oh, I don't,
back from the
Ron,
street.
have you noticed? I haven't noticed a lot of trucks,
going
you know,
that way.
traveling, you know, trucks going through the area using that anymore. But there was a time, you're right, they did start using it quite a bit when we were doing the streetscape stuff.
Or to avoid the.
Okay, so unless there's any more questions, I'm gonna skip to page 27, which is the park fund. Revenue was up a little bit a year ago. We've got a good start at $10,000, you know, almost $11,000. That comes after the 1st of July. You know, we sell our season's passes and all that stuff in June, you know, May and June. So I think we're going to beat our 21,000 for the current year. Might be better than 22.5 next year, but that's a little bit optimistic at least. I would say that we're struggling to find a pool manager for this year. We've got a couple of possibilities now, this just showed up in the last couple of days, but that's kind of one of those headaches that I'm struggling with. The other funds in the history there, those are to do with the big project, you know, the remodeling of the pool that we did a year ago. Down in other revenue, the MC Chuck Wagon, last year we got $1,625, but we only took care of it for a half a year. We got it the 1st of January. So this year we should get $3,500 for the upkeep of the Chuck Wagon from the nonprofit that helps us to take care of it. Under transfers, as we've been doing now for several years, I budgeted to transfer $40,000 from our project program support fund into the parks, and that's just to offset the loss. You know, we operate the swimming pool at a loss. You know, there just isn't no other way to put it, but it costs us money. So that's what that's for. And those transfers that are there, the $35,800 and $15,000, again, those will be taking place here in the next month or so before we get to obviously before we get to the end of June, but they're just internal transfers that need to be made. Under the expenses, you know, it's pretty much straight down the line. Same as it's been being in the past. You know, utilities, and I don't know if this is because, Ron, you might have some idea, because of the new pumps and stuff up there. If, you know, we put a new pump in the well and new pumps in all of the rest of the system, our utilities are significantly less than they've been running in the past. So I don't know, I was hoping that that's because we've got a lot of new equipment that's running more efficiently, and so I lowered our utility budget just a little bit.
Yeah, we had that old time heavy pump in there, but we've got, you know, 2 small ones in there.
Well, we do, and you know, we didn't pump as much water out of the well either, because now the pool doesn't leak, so we don't have to fill it back up. Page 30, there's $4,200 extra in this budget now that isn't budgeted into a specific line item, so I just left it in the contingency.
Are we gonna have to do any improvements on the wading pool?
Well, we may have to seal it. I don't know. I'll look at it.
'Cause I thought, but we've got the
We'll-
system that we needed to get for that to be legal.
Oh, on the chlorinator?
Yeah.
Well,
We haven't done that.
if Mary looks the other way, we might
The
get by it.
public,
You might know somebody, huh?
the public health people, without mentioning any names, and the pool inspectors actually have told us, are not, I guess they're not pressuring us to make those changes.
Okay.
And as it turned out, we spent more money on the big pool remodel last year, all of that project. And the money that was going to pay for the little pool was Collins McDonald Fund money. And you know, they would probably have some more money for us if we wanted to go ahead and do that, but we're not getting pressure. There's a couple of differences of opinion. Where that pool is only operating for a couple, 3 hours of an afternoon, and it is filtered, and then we drain it and refill it the next day. You know,
It's not like it's staying in.
no,
Right.
you know, if we were leaving it full and recirculating the same water, you know, all the time, then we might have a public health issue. We would have a public health issue.
Yeah, we would, because there's a whole lot of kids in there who don't.
You know, the water we put in it is chlorinated, they add more chlorination to it, and so, the reason that came up was from
Water is dumped anyway, and
Yeah.
there's in Florida, that which one's get away with that, especially with the short usage of time.
Yeah. So,
Some is bleaching.
we're just gonna let that one go unless we get some
They
additional
emptied.
pressure to do something
Yeah,
about it.
it gets drained. And they sweep it.
We are, you know, just regarding the park down there, I said earlier, I bought some paint for community service crew that's painting the bleachers up at the swimming pool. They're gonna go down and take a look at the bathroom building at the park down there. It's got some paint that's peeled.
Yeah, the ugliest
and
doors.
I forgot about that, but I will make sure that if
Yeah,
they
get
paint the
those
building for
doors.
us, we get a new door paint. What color do you want, Sharon?
Not
Brown?
Not that thing.
That's right. Kurt got you got it for us.
I have a contact with some people who sell those big squares,
Yeah.
and I will forward that email to you,
Okay.
and you can do some price comparison, and definitely we want to be part of the colored choice.
I'm actually doing some
Is that the
more.
ugliest stuff you've ever seen in our blue and white room? See?
We may have some further discussion about this yet. That's not for budget committee though, that.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
Head
just want more
Start.
people on our side.
This is a community development block grant through HUD that is passing through the town to build the new Head Start facility, and we're well into the planning phases. I was gonna bring you a copy of the floor plan for their new building, and I left it on my desk upstairs. We've been through 2 renditions with the engineers and architects, and I think there'll be one more, and we'll be out to bid in August, maybe, for the new building, possibly September. We'd like to see the slab get poured this fall if possible, you know, so that it's ready to start building up on beginning next spring, possibly even this fall, depending on the winter. You know, lately, you can work all winter in Lakeview. So anyway, this is all grant funds, except for the $40,000, where it says in the beginning fund balance, and those are going to be, well, actually, we've received $20,000 of that, which is Collins McDonald funds that have been donated. It's a local match. And Head Start has $20,000 of cash that they've accumulated over the years that is the rest of that $40,000. What I'm not sure is whether we'll have to bring that into our fund and then give it back to them in order to prove that the match actually existed or not. So it will be just a matter of complying with the HUD requirements on that. So that this will be in our budget next year as well, and then the project should be completed. Our snow and flood control fund, this is the one that I said we've now discontinued collecting the dollar. I wish John were here. He made a point of that last year, and he'd be happy to hear that we actually have done that. This fund is part of the council's decision here earlier this year, actually it was last fall, I guess, to do some juniper control work up Bullard Canyon that was looked at as being fire protection, that also would lend itself towards improving the habitat for making it more resistant to flood in the future by not having a burned over area that Dinwiddie Road and so forth. So we're transferring $12,000 from this fund to the Bullard Canyon Fund, which was where we'll actually pay for the match requirements to Oregon Department of Forestry, who is doing the juniper control work. This will be a 3-year project, so there will be it's actually going to be about $35,000 total. The third payment will be a little smaller. That will do all of the juniper work that's planned to be done. So at the end of all of this, we will then be down under $25,000. So in about 3 years, it could happen quicker if we get a bad winter and need to use some of our money for snow removal or other flood control. But as things have been going, I would expect that in about year 3 from now, we'll need to put the dollar back on. Wood stove replacement fund. These are some loan funds the town has had available, loans and grants. This is in addition, Michael, to the SCOED funds. So we've got about $13,020. It looks like we should have between the beginning fund balance and the paybacks that we get to use again. for either matches or loans for wood stove changeout. These kinds of funds, we budget to spend the whole thing. We don't usually do that, but at least if an opportunity comes to use them or a need, we budgeted to do that. Yeah,
And it's an in and out budget.
Bike trails, bike paths and trails, this is a set aside of 1% of the gas tax funds that goes into, that has to be set aside for bike paths and trails. We're using a little bit of this fund this spring. You may have noticed if you've been down around where the new soccer field's going to be, they're working on sidewalks and stuff down there. There's a piece of curb, about 200 feet of curb on South First Street that needs to be replaced, and so we'll be paying for that out of this fund. When the project's finished, the bike path that goes around the ball field complex there will extend down to the district office. That's how we're using this fund to do it. Again, we budget to use this. It's another one of those in and out budgets. If the opportunity or need comes, we have the spending capacity to use the funds. Okay, now page 39. This is the program project support fund, we call it. This is where we transfer money from this. The source of this funds is when we did a rate increase on water and sewer funds a number of years ago, we set aside a part of that increase to be transferred directly into this fund for two purposes primarily. One was to help fund the park system, the pool primarily, and the other was to begin to build a grant fund to be used in the future when somebody comes and we need a grant match for some project of ours or somebody else, maybe again Main Street possibly. The council would have to at that time decide that yes, that's a project that they would like to do, and then they can designate specifically to use this fund. At the end of the year, at the end of this coming year, we should have about $175,000 in this fund to, so it's, over 5, 6 years, 7 years maybe it's been, this fund, this has grown as we wanted it to, so that we have, some amount of money here now to use for projects that we may want to do in the future. But the main thing it's doing at this time is
Is that where you're
supporting
gonna buy
this
the
school
ugly
other
carpet
park.
from?
Pardon?
Is that where you're gonna buy the ugly carpet?
No.
This now we go from that. We get an extra $20 for going with that.
Okay, so that takes care of page 40 as well. So now page 41 is the building fund. From years ago when they had a timber sale at Bullard Canyon, the leftover funds from that ended up in at least one of the places it ended up, I guess I'm told, was in this building fund, and it's been used over the years for various different things. I don't have any particular thing to use it for next year, but we have over the years gone by used it either at the fire station. I guess we could use it here at Town Hall if we didn't have enough money in our Town Hall budget for the updates, upgrades and stuff that we're doing. But I don't anticipate anything with it, but it's budgeted to be spent if in fact something comes along we need it for. So page 43 is the fire truck fund, and this is similar. The source of this fund, in recent history at least, was a former mayor. We had donated, gave all of his salary. He didn't want it. It would foul up his career's retirement, I think. So he gave all of his money to the fire truck fund. And so the new ladder truck that we have, the new dust ladder truck we have, was this fund paid for it. The old ladder truck, if and when they get ready to get rid of it, and if there's anything worth getting rid of, any proceeds from that surplus sale would go back into this fund. Systems development charges, these are if a new home is built, and I'll just use Chuck Kelly for an example, that lot was never developed before Chuck bought it and developed it. We charge new development, systems development fees. It's for capital improvements in the future. And there, by ordinance, it's set aside, or set out how they will be collected. 177 for water, 578 for sewer, 39 for streets, and $25 for parks. And, it's a guess, how many houses are we gonna have built next year? It's more than that. There is occasionally something else that's done. For example, if the 42nd group develops their facilities out there, we will charge them the systems development fees for water and sewer because they're going to use that service. Even though they're outside of the boundary of the town of Lakeview, they're using our infrastructure. So we will charge them for those appropriate fees. We won't charge them for streets and parks since they're not in town. Red Rock, on the other hand, they will pay them all because they will be in town when the project is finally finished. Okay? Page 47 and 48, these are 2 pages that we no longer need in our budget if we can figure out a way to eliminate them. Or not 48, 47, excuse me, just page 47. It's the street paving project. This is where we actually paid for the improvements from the bond, all the street work that was done a number of years ago. But it's all been spent. The last of it was spent to do some chip sealing about 6 years ago, and it's all gone. So if we can eliminate that page, it would just save us the paper. There isn't any other value now. Page 48 is the Bullard Canyon project, we call it. We did over the years a number of juniper control projects. We did some road improvements up there. We've done all the things we're going to do, except that we still are doing the juniper control that Oregon Department of Forestry is doing up there now. So you will see the $12,000. There it is, transferred in on page 49 from the flood snows fund and then spent for juniper control. State Forestry's up there and doing the work they're doing in their forest. The head person here locally, Mr. Gustafson, Dustin, I think his first name. They own the little store down here that used to be My Life store, Country Home. Anyway, he suggested that we needed to take a look, and I think I put it in my manager report once, but that we might want to take a look at kind of a sanitizing timber sale up in the area to clean up some, there's some thickets and some other stuff. He thought there might be some value, and so I'll this summer we'll take a look at that and see if there's really something there we might want to do.
Is that something that Red Rock might be interested in?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether they're going to want to take timber sales of cull materials or if they're going to just want, my understanding is that Fremont Sawmill is actually, Collins Company is going to be the contractor that's going to provide the biomass to Red Rock, that they won't be out buying it themselves. So, did I hear another question? Nope. Okay, utility fund.
Yeah.
I just think I
Before
didn't know that somehow.
It was a question I
Yes.
had, and I didn't think to ask it when we were doing the park fund.
Okay.
Remember we had, Sturbaugh came and talked to us about the possibility of changing that unused,
Oh, the basketball, or
to
the
a
tennis court
basketball,
to a
that
basketball.
tennis court, and
Yeah.
is that something we're even thinking about at all for funding, or was that just? I thought it was a great idea myself.
Yeah, I went and looked at it, and I had some thoughts. I need to get with Kevin and go up there, maybe he and I, and look at it. My concern about it was that, the basketball court, the basketball is going to end up out in the park a bit. It seems to me like, bouncing over the fence off of the rims, when you put rims up at 10 feet high. I just wondered about the practical, whether it's a practical thing to do with the big fences that are out there. You gotta go outside then. That's not a major reason not to do it. I just haven't talked with
We
him
just need
anymore
to think
about
about
it.
it
So-
and plan through.
But I haven't budgeted any money specifically. We do have $4,000 contingency in our park fund now this year. So I don't know if that's enough to do anything with regards to what, I don't
I
know
just
what it
thought
might
it was
cost
a
to
great
do.
idea.
Well, it is. I think it makes sense. People do play tennis up there
Well,
still.
Be used
But
to.
it'd be good if we could somehow use, let it be used for
Most
basketball.
people use the one down there by the school
Yeah.
parks, or the baseball and
Yeah.
stuff.
So now we're to Ron's budget. Public Works, as I said in my budget message, we don't have any big projects planned in Public Works. We've set aside a little bit of money in capital improvements, and sometimes there's short pieces of water line that have to be fixed, or some things that need to be done that come up. But I don't think, unless he's changed his mind since we talked about it, that there's any particular projects planned.
After dealing with contractors for the last 2 years, I'm gonna take a year off.
So when will they start refinishing the surface for all the work that they've done?
Well, they've gotta get, the water mains approved and finish hooking up the meters and stuff. So
And that's in-
we're still-
That's part of that,
That's in this year's budget.
In this year's
The
budget.
contract is supposed to be done, I don't remember the exact date, but it's early
first.
June.
Yeah, June 1st.
Is it June 1st? That's when this project's supposed to be over.
and that includes the refinishing.
That includes the paving, yeah.
Are they gonna make it?
And do they have to pay a penalty if they don't?
We could charge them a penalty.
Yeah, the contract allows us to do that. I guess if they get all the rest of the work done in the last week of June, or last week of May, it rains all week long, or it's too cold to pave or something, you kinda got to allow for that. But, if it's just because they don't
On the
get
other
around
hand,
to
you
doing
don't want
it, then that's a different story.
Stretched out through the entire summer either.
No.
We'll do that, yeah. We'll see how it goes.
The one item I want to point out in this, and I just want to make it clear, is, I've got my old budget, I want to make sure. Yes, it's there. The $16,500 in line item 820 in revenue. And this is simply a hypothetical at this point. That is the payment from the DOC geothermal back to the utility funds for the loan that I anticipate that we're going to need when we finish the Parker Greenhouse Utley mess project. When we get that settled, there's going to be a need for a loan. I based this number on $75,000 being borrowed, being paid back over 5 years at equal payments of $15,000, and I'm projecting 2% interest. Now that's about double what we get on our investments, so it's not a bad amount. But 5 years from now, our interest rate's going to be 5 or 6% too. So our returns on our investments. So, but that's what that number represents. It will become an exact number when we get this all settled and we know what the actual costs are and what the deficit is. Then we will budget for that. We will do a transfer for that amount, and then we will budget to repay it. Other than that, the revenues here, the beginning fund balance shows a little bit less than it's been in the past, but that's because we're spending money on a project this year. And that should recover next year. Again, all of the rest of the lines in here are just reflect the 2.5% increases. We've got the PERS,
The medical, dental, life, I noticed in all the previous categories was reduced, but this stayed the same as there. At the 45,000, 35,000, but in all the previous budgets for the different areas, it was reduced.
Right.
So I don't know
Well,
if that's extra
and, you know,
money.
looking at the history, I would say, and my assumption that medical insurance is not going to change, it probably is a little bit high. It could be reduced to, it looks like last year we spent $42,498. So, you know, that could be reduced a little bit. I tell you what we do, Charlie, in these two budgets, there's plenty of resources. We don't budget as closely, try to get as exact to the right amount, because it's,
Roll.
you know, if we don't spend it, it just carries over anyway, so. So we don't get it, we don't have to sharpen our pencil as fine and run water and sewer.
I was just gonna give more money to spend,
Oh,
you know, and something else.
As long as you don't take money away from him.
I know, you don't take money
You've been known to
away
do that too, so.
I know, I've been very
Don't go
cranky
there.
about that.
Yeah.
because we have no projects next year, I've lowered the engineering fee service amount. Ron and I went, well, he did the budget first and then I went through it.
I gotta go back to water and sewer testing. The last 3 years, it's been low, but I'm gonna do the phase 2.5 this summer,
Okay,
and that's close to $2,000 test.
okay,
So we need to,
bump that back up
let's
to
bump that back up to 6.
6. Okay.
Which one was that?
Okay, we're on line item 338,
338.
so move that up to 6.
Every 3 years, I've gotta do a BOC, IOC water test, and it's $1,800 to $2,000.
So you're gonna move that line item up to how much, 6 again?
Up to 6,000, yeah, so that'll be a $3,000 change in the contingency. Down towards the bottom of page 730, there's where, you know, we're doing a water line this year. Next year, we've still left $100,000 in there in case something comes along that we have to do, you know, some piece of,
Buy a pump.
yeah.
It wipes it out.
But we don't have anything particularly planned. Yeah. On page 54, those lines, USDA loan, OECD loan, those things are paying for the various projects that happened years ago. The sewer, or not, this isn't sewer bond, this is the buying of the water district north of town.
Missouri.
What was the other one? Oh, Missouri.
Missouri.
The Missouri Avenue extension, water line extension, a number of years ago. So there's loans with those agencies and those are paying them back. And then you've got the $100,000 contingency there, which will now be 98,000 because we just, 97,000 because we just added 3,000 to that line item a moment ago. Okay? So at the bottom of the page starts the sewer department, and again, this is the same sort of thing. We've adjusted the payroll categories, added the PERS deferred. The rest of the line items are pretty much all the same. We don't have a project, but I don't know, 10,000 for engineering, Ron?
I didn't have 10,000 in there.
I don't know,
On my worksheet, yeah.
again, I guess if we don't expend it, we won't, and if we don't have the liability, we won't spend it. But, down, this one, the water testing doesn't have anything to do with this one, Ron?
No,
Okay.
and we didn't have that much testing this year or last year because we weren't discharging into Thomas Creek.
That's right, and we're not discharging now, but next spring, again, we can hope, I hope we have to. That's what we need. Page 56, again, we've got $75,000 in capital improvements, again, just in case a pump goes, you know, a main someplace has to have major repair, something such as that. further down the page, starting with number 750, line item 750 are the various loans that exist for the sewer department, sewer wastewater. Primarily it's the new sewer lagoons west of Roberta Avenue. And at the end of this, on page 57, there's the $120,000 transfer to general fund, and then the $67,200 transfer. Again, this is that rate increase, that portion of the rate increase that we set aside to go into our project program support funds. Okay? Okay, DOC geothermal. Budgeting that will.
What are you getting up for? You gonna throw somebody out?
Hey, Mayor!
Need a cane?
Did you guys get it all solved?
We're down to the last two.
Are you?
We grossed everybody out to tell them why you were gone.
Oh,
Everybody cringed when they said I
it's
saw.
fun, but I didn't get that today, they're just checking it, but it is fun when they do it. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, go
That's
ahead.
okay, we're on page 58, Mike.
Wow, you guys are moving.
$50,000 income from DOC for the geothermal project north of town. We're going to, even though year-to-date wouldn't reflect it, we will exceed the 48,000 we budgeted this year, and actually I think we're going to be in the neighborhood of 52 or 53,000. The reason for that is not because they're using that much more heat. It's because of the inefficiency of the system on their end. They haven't had good maintenance people on their end, and their system is I don't plugged. I guess it's not plugged, but it's coated with years and years of buildup. We clean our heat exchangers. We try to do at least one a year, and sometimes we do 2 a year. And it keeps our system on our end working really well. But there's a lot of water goes through theirs to get the amount of heat that they need, and they pay, instead of paying by the BTUs, which the school and the hospital are doing, they pay a flat amount a month, and then they pay per gallons pumped out of the well. And we're pumping more gallons than we need to, but they don't seem to be too concerned about getting their system working more efficiently. So, but I budgeted 50 anyway. So down, now, I just, as I said in my budget message, and you know, we've talked about it briefly around here, I anticipate, although I'm not going to budget for it yet, that the greenhouse project, the 42nd group, is going to come into this, into play with this fund. If they do all the things they say they want to do and they meet the schedule that I'm hearing, they want to be ready to start as soon after the 1st of January as the state of Oregon will issue licenses for facilities to begin to grow cannabis. And so that's when they're going to start taking heat. So subject to still some things to be done, there could be substantially more income. Another piece in here. That may be large enough amount of money that we might have to have a special budget meeting to do a supplemental budget for the town, depending on what that actually works out to be. So we'll see when that time comes. On page, I do have some changes to make on page 59. On page 6, or on line item 650, there should be $5,500 there. Okay, that's right, we did redo them, and I just marked them in mine, and then on page, or line item 854 is the hypothetical loan payment back to the utility funds.
I'm one step ahead of you, Ray.
Huh?
I said I'm one step ahead of you.
There's no wages.
Okay, as I said in my budget message, I'm proposing that we should transfer all the wages until we recover at least, in this fund, that we'll move all the wages to the very well. A couple of things. One is there's money there. Secondly is that project was put together and it's got an actual business model to it. You know, we've got contracts, we arrived at a fee to pay the costs of all the things that go along with it. You know, the DOC, even though their system isn't running very efficiently, they're paying between 25 and 30%. If you look at it as a BTU of what the high school or the schools and the hospital are paying. But that was an agreement that the town made back in 2004, I believe it was. Remembering that the state of Oregon paid a lot of the costs of the development. And they entered into an agreement that's 26 years long. That's the length of period of the funding for the building of the prison. And although if there are unusual circumstances that come along, there are ways that the rates could be changed. It really doesn't lend itself to a very business-like way of managing it. Now, if the cannabis growers come online, that will change. You know, we're going to have a business model that reflects something real with
For that
them.
whole
So,
geothermal development then?
pardon?
For that whole geothermal
Yes, for the-
development?
yes.
out
Yes. So I've proposed to eliminate them from this budget, Charlie, from the DOC budget, and well, I guess that's all there really is to look at in that budget. So let's go to page 61, which is the Berry Well project. And again, here's the income from, we'll have a substantial beginning fund balance there, as well as the income from the schools and the hospital. Those should be exact numbers. We have contracts with them for a certain amount of heat at a certain rate, so we know what that amount's going to be. Now, there could be more if they go over, if they go more than 9,000 at the hospital or more than 6,500 BTUs at the schools, then there's an excess rate. They haven't done that. They didn't do that this last winter. It's been kind of mild, I have to admit, so we haven't really tested it, but this winter they didn't exceed. So I've moved, starting down on the bottom one, where it says geothermal wages on page 61. I've got some numbers that we need to change. They didn't carry over from the other, when I did the 2.5% adjustment and we tried to move them over here, we didn't get them moved over correctly. So let me give you some new numbers that are going to go where geothermal wages is. That number should be 6273. That was what used to be in DOC plus 2.5% is what it amounts to. The supervisor should be 9828. FICA expense should be 1,025. Medical dental should be 3,700. Now going to the top of page 62, retirement contribution should be 2,050. PERS deferred should be 746.
It's here.
That is 746.
It is.
Oh, it is, it's already there, okay, never mind, that one's correct. Unemployment, SUT expense should be 60.
Line item?
250, line item
It's
250,
right
Mike.
below the deferred.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I guess we already have 750 in the safe
Safe.
expense, so
Right.
we're okay there. So what that will do, if you go to the bottom of the page where it says ending fund balance, it'll reduce that number to 43,136. So the net difference is $6,864. Now this budget includes the loan payment. This will be the first year, this June will be the first year we make a loan payment to USDA. As you can see, last year when we budgeted, we hadn't finished all of the project and final expenses, and we budgeted a little high, 32,800. That this is the exact number, and that number will never change for the next 40 years. Also, right above there is the reserve amount. We have to set aside that amount every year for 10 years, which is a reserve for, that number will grow. Beginning next year, that'll be 24,000 and something. And there's ways that we can use it if we have emergencies, but primarily that's intended to grow to be $24,842, and it will stay there then until the project, till the loan is expired. So it gives us a year's reserve of payment if something were to go wrong. Okay?
So rather than 24,000, it's 124,000.
The loan payment is 124,000, the repair amount is 12,000.
Okay.
Yeah. We set that aside for 10 years until we get to 124,000. Okay, and so the final page 64 is, we call it the debt service fund, but this is the on your tax bill you get every year, there's the $1.07, I think it is, per $1,000 evaluation. It's for the bond that paid for the street improvements years ago. And this is where we collect the taxes back that pay for it. That the bond payment actually varies. It isn't the exact amount year after year after year. Next year's payment will be $136,704. This year it's going to be $133,000. So it fluctuates up and down a little bit. So when we send our tax collection amount to the assessor, then they make the adjustment so they collect the right amount of money for us. This, I didn't bring it to everybody's attention this year. I think there's 3 more years on this.
2008 or 2018.
2018 is the last payment. Yeah. And so with all of that, and a few changes that we noted as we went along, there's our budget for next year. I went back and added it all up, and our total budget of all of those things is $7,934,829 if I added it right.
Could you please repeat that number?
Ray, since I missed most of this, you saw me go through this yesterday at my desk up there. Was anything major that you guys, changes or caught or nothing?
Just some little adjustments.
Minor things.
Okay.
And Mike, I'll get with you maybe tomorrow or whatever.
I'll come in early for that meeting tomorrow. I'll
Okay.
meet with you. Okay.
As I said earlier, we set aside, it totals up to $91,500 for that PERS set aside that I talked about that is different this year. And even though we won't have to spend it, we don't actually have to spend it, we do have to account for it. So,
John was writing the same number. Can you say that 7 million again?
pardon, $7,934,829. Now that was before these little changes we've made. I don't think actually the changes we made were just moving things around. The total should still be the same.
Hard to believe a small municipality like Lakeview would have an $8 million budget.
Well,
you know?
$1.6 million of that is that Head Start project. It is really not, it's passing through us and we're responsible for it, but we don't see the net benefit of it.
We're not charging admin.
We're not. SCOED is doing the bookkeeping portion of this, and they're getting a small admin fee for doing that. But basically what we're doing here is we do it about 1 check a month, 2 checks a month. When the contract starts, it'll still be about the same. So it's not much work on our part. We have a big responsibility. I don't want to poo-poo it. we are, the town of Lakeview is responsible for this money, not SCOED or not Head Start. You know, we are responsible, and so I'm fully engaged in the process, but